I get so many questions from people who look like me asking me why I wouldn't take my children to Africa and why I moved them to Europe. When I travel to Africa and I am in the airport, and the airport attendant tells me to step aside so that the Indians and the Europeans can walk through.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel once again. My name is Dash Lifestyle. Kindly for watching me for the first time, remember to subscribe, like, share, and also comment. So guys, in today's video I want us to see the reasons to why the Black Americans and Jamaicans they ended up returning back to their country after arriving here in Africa. I want us to see the challenges that they usually face when they arrive here in Africa, and they ended up making a choice to return back to Jamaica or returning back to America. So kindly guys, watch this video till the end, then I'll be back with more comment.
2019 marked the year of return and 400 years since the arrival of the first slaves to the U.S. This coincided with the call for African Americans to return to their homelands. And since then, thousands of Black Americans have in fact been paying heed to the call and making the move to Africa. Most of the diaspora have been moving to Ghana, but many others have also moved to places like Senegal, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Rwanda, and South Africa. The reasons for leaving the U.S. transcend an ancestral calling. For many, it's the fractured race relations and an existential trauma that exists in the African American psyche since slavery. This all came to a boiling point after the murder of George Floyd in 2020. For many, it was a wake-up call that America wasn't really where they belong, and so they packed their bags in search of more welcoming lands. For many, their new home in Africa was blissful. A warmer climate, a lower cost of living, better quality food, and a sense of belonging, without the day-to-day challenges of both subtle and more overt racism that confronted them in America. However, not everybody had the soft landing they were hoping for. In this video, we'll look at why some African Americans end up returning to the U.S. after making the move to Africa. We've found that there are 4 main reasons. Keep watching until the end, as reason number 4 will surprise you. First up, no jobs. Many African Americans hold the misconception that when they arrive in whichever African country they move to that they'll be able to easily get a job. This simply isn't the case. Unlike the U.S., jobs in most African countries are scarce, with unemployment rates sometimes being as high as 50%. Western world conveniences. A lot of the diaspora often fail to recognize how cushy their lifestyles are in the West. Only when arriving in Africa do they realize what they've taken for granted. Simple examples include basic road infrastructure with sidewalks. A lot of African countries may have tarred roads, but often don't have sidewalks. This means that walking from A to B often isn't an option. So you find yourself driving or taking taxis everywhere. Another example is online shopping. In the US, one can buy an item on Amazon using one-click checkout and it'll be with you later that day. E-commerce may well exist in Africa, but getting an item delivered to you may not be possible. This is because many parts of Africa don't have traditional addresses. The houses don't have names or numbers, and street names often don't exist. As a result, people often have to revert to providing landmark references such as the yellow house opposite the post office next to the park.
I wanted to make one point also. It's like, and that's getting back to food or things you purchase. I'm noticing this is what I did in the States. When I got, like, we drink almond milk or certain dairy products or certain things, I was used to them lasting, once I opened them, like 9 days. Well, it's different here with the product we got. It lasts maybe 5. It says it on the carton just like it does in the States. But those are the things you have to look into, because when I first got here and I got the almond milk, I didn't think about it. I just started keeping it for the amount of days I was used to. And I said, oh, I need to read this and see what it says. And I'm realizing it's the less amount of days. And so those are the things you have to look at too. Things that maybe you were used to getting of certain products that maybe had an expiration date different in the States, it may be different here. So just little.
For some folks, not having these Western conveniences is more important than they realized, and before long they start to miss the comforts of American living and end up moving back. Culture. African Americans often erroneously believe that when they move to Africa, they'll fit right into the culture like a hand in a glove. This is very rarely the case. Although their ancestors may hail from the African country they have moved to, being so many generations removed from this country means that culturally they have very little in common with these people. Don't be expecting grits and deep fried chicken in Ghana. There aren't going to be any gospel singers in Senegal. Many people in Africa have never heard of Steve Harvey and don't care. The ones who try and adapt can sometimes make it work, but culture is a complex thing which is hard to articulate into words. It's also a feeling, and sometimes that feeling for African Americans in Africa just isn't there.
Here in America, you have selected different types of foods. If you want Mexican, if you want Italian, if you want Jamaican, if you want all of these different types of foods, when you get to Africa, those areas who have that, if they have that, are going to be tremendously high to eat at.
Lack of choice. America is perhaps more the land of plenty than the land of the free. You never have a lack of choice when making a decision in America. If you want to book a flight from New York to Los Angeles, you can choose from more than 6 different airlines. In most African countries, you may only have one airline to choose from. If you want to furnish a house or apartment, you have a cornucopia of choice when it comes to sofas, rugs, and tables and chairs. In Africa, this choice will most certainly be more limited. The lack of choice makes things more one-dimensional and also will invariably mean that prices on goods and services will be greater.
Then you want to go ahead and buy the items that you're so used to, whether it's dishwashing liquid, whether it is clothing, whether it is, whether it's cleaning items, whether it is, the food, or whether any item that's got to be imported in, it is going to be a task on your pockets.
All in all, every country has its pros and cons. Through trial and error, many African Americans have found a new home in Africa. For some who have moved over there more flippantly, African living has often not met their expectations and they've ended up moving back to the States. The moral of this video is to do your homework and plan effectively before deciding to up and leave the US for Africa.
Does anti-blackness better than a black immigrant or like a black person from the...
I get so many questions from people who look like me asking me why I wouldn't take my children to Africa and why I moved them to Europe. When I travel to Africa and I am in the airport and the airport attendant tells me to step aside so that the Indians and the Europeans can walk through, there is a level of self-hatred still to this day in Africa. And you guys are going to get so pissed off at me, and I don't care because I am of African descent. I can say what I want to say. But when you tell me to step aside so that the Europeans and the Indians, our bank accounts look alike, but you want to tell me to step aside in the homeland of my ancestors, but I should step aside so they can, because they need to get through. There is no day on this earth that I will walk this earth and worship a colonizer. The original brown and native people all over this world, I salute you. There are so many injustices in Africa, so many corrupt mindsets, we have to fix it. There was no way that I would ever move my children to a country in Africa. And I'm talking about a specific country, but I've experienced this in 4 countries in Africa now. 4. There is no way that I would ever move my children to Africa and have them experience an establishment owner telling me to remove the fan from my side because the American, which again, I have not spoken, so you don't even know where I'm from. But the white Americans on the other side, they need the fan. There's no way. There's no way. And again, I am spending time in Dubai as well. I've never had anything like that happen. And I could talk about this all night long. I could talk about it because I married into a Nigerian family as well, who they're very colorist. I remember my mother-in-law telling me that my sister-in-law was having a baby and that she hoped, she was praying like every day, doing something so that the baby is light skinned. Meanwhile, I have brown children. I myself am brown. So where do you think I should place that? Like I just never imagined the level of ignorance, the level of self-hatred that some African people have. I was raised in a pro Pan-African household. Like, you are beautiful, baby. I don't care if your edges or roots are not. Enjoy the whatever. You are beautiful. That is how I was raised. That's how my daughter is raised. She prefers, I'm all natural. I don't need anything. And yes, I'm using a filter because I need you guys to understand this. I need to get this message out there. I want everybody to stop and take a listen. It is very much so true. The most hatred that I myself have experienced is in Africa. Especially now, if I'm quiet and I am barefaced, natural hair tied, chilling with no makeup on, and you treat me like dirt because you think that I am not worthy. You don't know who I am. You don't know what I have. You don't know anything. But you treat me like the scum of the earth. Like, who are you? Scoff. I didn't even know scoffing was a thing. But you treat me like that initially. You better keep that same energy. When you do find out who I am, you better keep that same energy because I don't want my children to be associated with anybody who behaves that way. So this is why, and I have so many people, I get so many questions. Why aren't you in Africa? You have African family. Why aren't you in Africa? I don't want to be in Africa. I don't. I have assets in Africa. I will always advocate for people who look like me. I will always. And you know what? I will always advocate for the African children because they are the ones who will change. The millennials, the other ones, boomers, done. But I will always advocate for the children because they are the ones who will eventually change it all. So that is why I educate my children, but I don't immerse them. Not just yet. Eventually, we will. Africa has a long way to go. A very long way to go. And the African mindset has to evolve before I could ever immerse my children into any kind of nonsense like that. The level of colorism, tribalism. I can't even tell you how many experiences I have had with tribalism. No. The worst, and it's disrespectful and it's disgusting. I get disgusted thinking about it. So no, I would not immerse my kids in Africa. They will go. They know exactly where they're from. They know exactly, we travel there often, but to fully immerse them, I need them to go where they know that they are the beauty standard. And unfortunately, no matter what these propaganda and these campaigns and travel, return home with a return, it's not it is propaganda. It is a campaign. I worked in marketing. It is a campaign. I won't be subject to that. So yeah, this creator, go watch her video. I'm sorry I said that so late, but she's right. It's the worst. Don't even get me started on the West Indies. We're going to do another one about that one too, because no. Brown American
Black American. There seems to be like this ego that makes you think that you are the main character wherever you go. Therefore, when you go to places in Africa, you get surprised when you're treated like just another tourist. I've heard people saying stuff like, they only cared about my dollars. You've gone there expecting a kinship and connection with people whose history diverges from your history.
I thought this was interesting because I made a few videos about different ideologies around Blackness from some of the Black people that I meet, particularly in Europe, who are from the continent. And a lot of people confuse my commentary to think that I am expecting them to have the same ideologies and expectations regarding Blackness and connectivity as a Black American, which I don't. But I thought that it's interesting because a lot of Black Americans really romanticize like Africa and the idea of going home. And this is why.
Come with me to Oyotunji village. Now, this is a real live African village located in Seabrook, South Carolina. That's Gullah Geechee country. I'm not sure how many acres it is, but massive. It was founded in the 70s with the idea of bringing African Americans back to their culture, which is African spirituality.
So there is still, and has been for a really long time, different versions of connecting with Africa in the United States for a lot of Black Americans. Now, out in South Carolina, there is the Gullah Geechees, I can't say that word properly, who say that they can connect themselves directly back to where they came from in Africa, where their ancestors came from in Africa. And there's a variety of different versions of this, from like, using kente cloths to connecting with Kwanzaa, all of these things that a lot of Black Americans feel like should give them some sort of connectivity to Africa. And I think partially because so many Black Americans still don't feel like America's home, like, even though I would say it should be by now. Stuff like this, like that village that's calling itself a real live African village in South Carolina in America, is part of the reason why. They think that if they actually go to Africa, they will find home and kinship amongst African people. And just living in Europe amongst African people, because even in white-dominated countries, a lot of Africans do not feel a kinship to other Black people just because they see you walking down the street. And I think I had traveled enough before moving to Europe to know that, but it's still in me to smile or nod at Black people. And a lot of times people just stare at me like I stole their place in the visa line. But what I will say I have noticed is that when someone thinks that you look like somebody, in their country, then they might talk to you. Then they might seem a little friendlier and say hello and actually ask you something. But Lord, the disappointment on their face when you tell them you're American, like they wasted their time chatting you up. But I think because so many Black Americans did not evolve, they weren't able to evolve their African culture into what, this connectivity with American stuff, because it was stripped from them, and they don't know where to go because everything that was pushed upon them was basically white supremacy. And mind you, the same thing has happened in Africa. A lot of things, their religion, all of these things have been changed because of colonization. But while Black Americans have created some of the most amazing culture, there are still a lot of people who will say there's a real live African village in South Carolina. That's not an African village because it's literally not in Africa. And I think for a lot of Black Americans, while our history does diverge, a lot of the sources of why and what has happened not only to Black Americans in America, but what happens to Africans in Africa, Black Africans in Africa, have one source. And Black Americans often see that source as something that could be uniting, but Africans don't. And maybe because they don't see palm-colored people regularly and see the oppression that palm-colored people are doing more globally to them, they still have a different view of palm-colored people, generally speaking. And while I don't think most Black Americans are necessarily saying we're connected just because we're Black, we're connected because the source of where our oppression has come from for millennia is the same.
Something I've been thinking about recently is how normalized scamming is in the African community. And a conversation I had with my cousin who lives in Kenya recently kind of highlighted what the core of the issue is. So he was asking me how I was able to afford my iPhone, and I told him that I have it on credit and I pay monthly for it. And the next thing he said kind of surprised me. He basically was asking, like, what is preventing me from not paying the credit and basically just running away with the phone. And that made me think a little bit, because I think that is still the mindset that a lot of Africans live in, even ones that have moved to the United States. Like, they're still looking for easy ways to avoid certain things, make money. And obviously, sometimes it's hard to find a good paying job, especially with rising costs of things in the United States. And I think scarcity mindset also plays a role in this as well. And I'm just curious what other people think. Like, any Africans out there who have moved from their countries to the US, like, what do you think about this?
So guys, I hope you have watched that video and you have seen some of the reasons to why the Black Americans and Afro-Caribbean, they usually return back to their country after arriving here in Africa. You have seen some of the challenges, and also I want to add some of the reasons to why the Afro-Caribbean and Black Americans, they usually return back to their country after arriving in Africa. I remember I did a video of a Black American lady. She came out and complained about how the African people, they are treating her. She was saying that there's a high numbers of scammers here in Africa. I can tell you, yeah, Africa, we have scammer, and if you're not be very careful, you will be scammed. So for you to be very careful here in Africa, also you need to do proper research. If you want to buy something, kindly you need to do more research, so that if you want to pay for something, if you want to pay for a home, if you want to buy a land, or if you want just to do anything which it will make you to use a lot of money, just do more research before doing that, before paying or do anything, because there's a lot of scam here in Africa. But for me, I can tell you also, there's not Africa. Here in Africa, this scamming, it is not only in Africa. Also, we have scammers also in United States. We have scammer in UK. We have scammers in China. We have scammers in India. So scamming, it is everywhere. So it is not only here in Africa. And also, guys, another thing that this Black American lady also, she complained, it was about how she was being treated, because she's a black American, and also she has come here in Africa with an expectation that she will be treated as one of us, and yet she find that these people, they are not treating me as one of them. These people, they are treating me as a foreigner. So she came out and complained, because she's being treated like a foreigner in every places that she was going to tour or to visit. She was being charged high. And for me, I can tell this lady that here in Africa, if you are coming as a tourist, when you are visiting some of the other places, they will charge you more, because these people, they know, yes, I know you are a Black American, but you have not yet get the citizenship. So these people, they will always treat you as a tourist. So this lady, where she was going, she was being overcharged. There was a high price for the tourist. And for me, I can tell her that here in Africa, there is some places where you will go that will pay high when you are going there as a tourist. Yes, here in Africa, I know in United States, in UK, in Canada, there's no charges like that, but here in Africa we have that charges. Also, it is not only happening for the black Americans, also for the white Americans, for the white people also, when they are visiting here in Africa, in some of the places where they usually go to visit, there is a high price. And also, we as African, we have this mentality that the people who are coming from this first world country, they usually have more money than us. So the African people, they will end up increasing the price. If you want to buy a land as a black American, and you are immediately you tell this person you are from America, they will overcharge, they will increase the price of the land. So for you to avoid all this, you need to have a person who is a local, so that he or she can guide you, so that you cannot have these cases of being overcharged. Yeah, so that you can you can escape from being overcharged. So you just come and find a local person so that he or she can direct you and guide you. And also, another thing, this black American lady, she was complaining is, we as African, we are always telling our black Americans, our black people in the Caribbean, to come here at home. But when these people, they are coming here in Africa, we are not treating them as one of us, simply because we as African, first of all, these people, they have tried so much to come back here, because during the slavery, these people, they were not willing to go in the United States, in the Caribbean. These people, they were not willing to go. These people, they fought very hard. And also, it is because of our African leaders, our chiefs during slavery, who captured them and sold to the British colony or to the colonizers. And that's why we have our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean. But these people, they really want to come here in Africa. So for them to come here in Africa, to make it very easy, it is the right time for our government, our leaders, to make very easy for them to come here in Africa, because these people, they are always complaining when they want to come in Africa. It is so much expensive. Why is it expensive? We need to make very easy for the black people to come here in Africa. If you are a black person, you want to come in Africa, I can tell you that they need to make it a visa free for the black people to come in Africa, because these people, they are struggling to come here in Africa. And also, it is so much expensive. I saw some of the Jamaicans, they were complaining, they really want to come in Africa, they really want to come in Ghana, they want to come in Nigeria to look for their ancestor, but it is very difficult for them, simply because visa, it is expensive. Yeah, visa, it is very, very expensive. I wonder, we as our African leaders, they need to make very easy. They need to reduce the cost so that our brothers and sisters can come here in Africa. And also, apart from making it visa free to all black people, also they need to give these people citizenship, because these people, they are one of us. Africa, it is the motherland of the black people. All black people, they belong here. Why are these people, why are we charging these people if they want to get a citizenship? We need to give them citizenship. Yeah, if they want citizenship in Ghana, we need to give them. If they want citizenship in Kenya, in Nigeria, we need to give them for free, because they are one of us. So I saw that lady complaining that she really wants to have a citizenship, but the government, it is ended up charging him like $3,000 so that he can get that citizenship. Why are we selling our black citizenship to our fellow black people? No, it is not supposed to be like that. We cannot sell our citizenship to our brothers and sisters, so we need to give them for free. So it is now the right time for our leaders to work on that issue, so that we can have a lot of black people coming here in Africa, because these people, after arriving here, majority of them, they ended up returning back, because they feel that this is not the home which I was expecting. This is not the place which I was expecting to be a good, because in these countries that these people, they are living, there's so much going on. There's a racial discrimination, there's a racism, these people that are being oppressed, these people that are being given less opportunity. So for them being there, it is not very easy, but they really want to come back here home. But Also, when they are trying so hard to come here home in Africa, they find it very difficult. They are experiencing more problem than where they are, so they ended up returning back to where they are living, whether in the UK, in the United States, in Jamaica, in Caribbean country. So that was my point, guys. So kindly let's talk more on the comment section. Remember to subscribe if you haven't, like this video, share, and also comment.